Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, Russell, but in the past week or two, and this is what sent me back to looking at the YouTube guidelines, I've noticed that quite a few channels on YouTube have been speaking the drug which dare not speak its name. You probably know what I mean, Russell. It's hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin.
Oh, ivermectin. Are there four sweeter syllables in the English language? Ivermectin is trotting into the conversation. Is it true that the FDA has given doctors permission to prescribe ivermectin, doctor?
So, the 8th of August 2023. Now, this purple line here shows the vaccines that have been given in the United States, all the billions of dollars worth of vaccine. And then on the 8th of August, when the vaccine campaign is essentially over in the States and the pandemic is essentially over, 2023, the FDA explicitly recognises that doctors do have the authority to prescribe ivermectin to treat COVID-19. So it might come a bit late. Dr. Merrick was actually sacked from his position for wanting to prescribe ivermectin. Dr. Merrick is a very leading doctor in the States, very highly published, ran an intensive care unit, wanted to prescribe ivermectin, wasn't allowed to. The hospital said you can't, largely based on what the FDA was saying. Now, he and a couple of the doctors took this to court. It was rejected. There was an appeal. And at this appeal hearing, the judge there said, was actually questioning Ms. Honold, who was representing the FDA. And the judge said, well, why did you say no? You might remember that advert, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, come on, you all. Don't do it. Don't take ivermectin. She said, well, when you said no, surely that meant no. And then the lawyer for the FDA said, no, they were merely quips. Merely quips. You know, having basically banned ivermectin for these 2 or 3 years, it now turns out that these were merely quips. And it was allowed all the time, so why Dr. Merrick was sacked remains a bit of a mystery.
I don't like that they're using quips over the FDA, and people are, what is that then? Dr. Merrick losing his job? A prank? We only did that for a laugh, sort of a mass art exhibit. Like, it's extraordinary, an installation of unemployment. That's the kind of radical reframing that invites cynicism and doubt.
Drugs which might work are not getting researched because people actually aren't prepared to pay for them. So the evidence that we're getting is the evidence for drugs and treatments that people can make money out of. That is one problem. Take expert opinion. Well, we've just seen that Dr. Paul Merrick was one of the leading experts in the United States, but he wasn't allowed to give his opinion. He was being controlled by external forces. So the autonomy of the individual practitioners has now been reduced. So we can't get the data we want, the doctors can't make the decisions that we want, and the patient preferences can only be taken into account if you have informed consent. And we can't have informed consent because information is largely being controlled. So all of those principles of evidence-based medicine that I've fought for all my life, the best available evidence on the topic, expert opinion, patient preferences, you could argue quite strongly that none of those are now possible. So you could argue that evidence-based medicine is now basically an impossibility. So what we need to do about that is to make sure the right things are studied, return authority to the experts to make the decisions, and give patients informed consent so that they can make the decisions for themselves. That's the way we need to go.